Sailors over 50 don't need lectures about chasing records. You want a boat that protects your back, respects your sleep, and still stacks miles without drama. The good news is, the best Bluewater designs today were built for exactly that. Short-handed crews, safer cockpits, push-button sail handling, and interiors that work underway, not just at a boat show. In this video, we're going deep on 7 proven cruisers that make circumnavigation realistic after 50. I'll tell you how each boat lowers workload, where it quietly saves energy on day 5 of a passage, and which sailor each one actually fits. If clear, honest boat talk helps you plan smarter adventures, hit subscribe now so you don't miss the next deep dive. We post these every day.
First up, the Hallberg-Rassy 44. This is German Frers drawing a modern passage maker for real people, not rail meat heroes. The center cockpit is deep and genuinely protective, and that fixed windscreen, the classic Hallberg-Rassy doghouse, changes whole weather systems into background noise. You steer from behind glass when spray's flying, and you pop the canvas only when you want wind on your face. Most owners spec in-mast furling, a self-tacking jib, and electric primaries, so reefing is a finger motion, not a wrestling match. If you're a couple, you'll appreciate how every important line leads aft, how the clutches and winches live where your hands already go, and how the big moves become small. The hull is modern Hallberg-Rassy, long waterline for real average speeds, moderate displacement for sea-kindly motion, and a structure that just feels quiet. Underway, you notice the absence of chaos more than the presence of speed. The helm stayed light, the boat forgives small timing errors, and the autopilot doesn't have to shout through heel. Below, the galley is a sea galley you can actually use at sea, the handholds meet your reach, and the berths feel like beds even when the forecast was optimistic. Tankage is honest, storage is adult, and engine access doesn't require yoga. Imagine day 4 in a sloppy leftover swell. You ease the traveler 2 inches, roll a handspan of jib on the self-tacker, sip something warm under the windscreen, and the boat just keeps its stride. That's the HR44 value. Quiet miles at a low heart rate.
Next up, the Amel Super Maramu, a cult classic for couples who actually go. Amel built these boats for one job, circumnavigation by 2 people, and everything on board reminds you of that purpose. The ketch rig breaks the sail plan into smaller pieces you can handle with a smile. Electric furling for the main and Genoa is common. The windlass is electric, and the anchoring controls and sail controls are right where you stand watch, under a hardtop that turns ugly nights into bearable ones. You don't dash forward in foulies to reef. You make choices from a protected cockpit and keep your energy for the long haul. There's a dedicated engine room you can enter like a room, not a crawl space. The filter changes, belt checks, and impeller swaps happen in light, not in contortions. And that rhythm matters offshore. Sit, look, trim a touch, sip tea, glance at the mizzen, and carry on. In squalls, you don't argue with a huge single main. You trim mizzen for balance, roll a little head sail, and the helm goes quiet again. The boat doesn't ask for heroics. It rewards routine. On the hook, the cockpit is a protected porch. Underway, it's a command center. Owners love the way the boat hums rather than creaks, the way lockers are labeled, and the way wiring isn't a scavenger hunt. If your priority is redundancy, shelter, and low-effort reefing that you will actually use, this is the couple's circumnavigator that keeps you strong for landfall instead of wrung out.
Following that, the Oyster 475, the quiet luxury that still sails. People say Oyster when they mean bulletproof comfort, and the 475 hits the sweet balance, big enough to be a real home, small enough for a couple to run cleanly. The deck-saloon is the headline. You keep panoramic views from inside, which turns gray watches into civilized hours and makes anchorages beautiful even in a drizzle. The cockpit is deep and secure, the deck plan is laid out for short-handed work, and with electric winches and sane reef points, you make the early reef decision quickly and happily. Underneath the shine is conservative engineering that offshore sailors actually want.
Robust laminates, serious hardware bedding, real stainless, tidy systems access. On passage, you feel traction and calm, that steady, unhurried stride that wins the week, even if it loses a bragging contest on any single hour. Below, ergonomics rule. Steps are safe, handholds are where you need them, the passage galley braces you on both tacks, the nav station is a working desk, and ventilation means naps happen when they should. Tankage supports long legs, storage swallows spares without turning the boat into a rattle. If your picture of a perfect day includes a few inside hours with a wide view while the boat just eats miles, this is your boat. It's not a show pony. It's a quiet, capable traveler that keeps the crew fresh.
Next up, the Island Packet 420, the gentle giant with the cutter rig and the famous full-foil keel. The 420 is easy to spot. Cream hull, bowsprit, big four-triangle, and easier to live with. That long-keeled tracks like it's on rails, guards the rudder and prop, and tames the motion so the boat moves like a porch swing instead of a pogo stick. If you're over 50, that motion is gold. The cutter rig is the other secret. In rising breeze, you don't man up against a single big headsail. You roll some Genoa and let the staysail do the grown-up work, keeping the center of effort low and the bow honest. Suddenly, heavy weather sail handling is smaller, calmer, and safer. The shallow 5-foot draft opens up a whole atlas of anchorages, so you'd tuck behind shoals while the deep keel crowd paces in the fairway. Systems are stout rather than fragile. The cockpit is secure rather than sprawling, and the interior is laid out for real living, not tight angles and shin hazards. The boat is heavy in the best way. It forgives bad timing, it forgives a sleepy reef, it forgives an imperfect wave set. Picture a frontal passage at night. You're reefed, the staysail is drawing, the autopilot is happy, and the boat shoulders through with a low, predictable roll. You arrive with energy, not with stories of hand-to-hand combat.
Next up, the Najad 380, Scandinavian grit sized for real life. Think Hallberg-Rassy attitude in a slightly smaller, even easier to handle package. The center cockpit is deep and dry with stout coamings. The side decks are clean without booby traps. The cockpit ergonomics let you trim without gymnastics. A skeg-hung rudder buys you forgiveness when a sand wave reaches up or a following sea gets frisky. Most boats are set up with furling headsails and often in-mast main. Controversial on forums, wonderful on night watches when reefing becomes a single, repeatable motion you actually make early. The size is a practical win. Docking is easier, haul-outs are cheaper, and you'll practice because the boat never feels like it's bullying you. Below, the joinery is warm and tough, the passage galley is secure, the aft cabin is a real rest cave you can actually sleep in at sea, and storage fits the long trip spares without turning the place into a rattling toolbox. Take the mental picture of arriving in a tight harbor with a crosswind. On the Najad 380, you don't ask yourself if the boat is too much. You breathe, set a spring, and spin her in like you've done it for years. That's what keeps you sailing more days, and more days equals more miles.
Following that, the Pacific Seacraft 40, Bill Crealock's gentleman's tank. The lines are traditional because they work. A deep 4-foot, a sweet run, a skeg-hung rudder, and a cutter plan that keeps sail areas reasonable. Everything about the PS40 whispers confidence to a small crew. The sea galley is narrow enough to brace without bruises. The cockpit is deep and protective without being a social amphitheater. The tow rail catches your foot when your balance isn't perfect, and the deck hardware sits where your hands expected. Underway, the helm feels honest. Set it up, trim the staysail, and the boat finds a groove you can trust for hours. You won't set day records, you won't care, and neither will your back.
In quartering seas that twist lighter boats, the PS-40 tracks with the Skegs standing guard. Maintenance is sane. The engine isn't buried under art, locker lids don't require a map, and the builder clearly expected owners to change parts themselves far from a yard. If your idea of a good passage is a boat that shrugs and says, "I've got it," while you make tea and check clouds, this is your small crew confidence machine.
And finally, the Contest 50 CS, the big boat feel that a couple can still run with grace. This one blends Judel-Vrolik performance DNA with a high-end interior and Lloyd certification. Yes, a third party literally signs off on the structure and process. What that means offshore is stiffness without drama and silence instead of chatter. On deck, the working bits fall to hand. Winches within reach of the helm, sheet leads that make sense, primaries that will be electric on most boats, and a cockpit that is deep and protective without feeling bunkerish. You can trim from the driver's seat, you can reef without relay race. You can let the autopilot do its thing because the hull isn't trying to throw it off the line. Below, the center saloon feel gives you light and sight lines without abandoning a secure seagoing layout. Systems access is genuinely good. You can do the boring maintenance without cursing the designer. And noise levels are low, which matters on night 3 when the hum of a well-built boat is the only soundtrack you want. If you like to feel a bit more stride in your stride, but you don't want to pay for speed with nerves, this is the elegant, inspected answer that gets you there fresh.
Let's pull this together so you can pick with confidence. If you want push-button miles, shelter behind glass, and that Frers calm motion, the Hallberg-Rassy 44 is a proven partner. If your priorities are redundancy, weather protection, and reefing you'll actually use at the push of a button, the Amel Super Maramu was built for your logbook. If you crave views on gray days and a hull that feels like traction in the water, the Oyster 475 is a deck-saloon done right. If you want gentle motion, cutter rig control, and a 5-foot draft that sneaks you into the good anchorages, the Island Packet 420 is the choice. If small crew confidence is your mantra, with bulletproof fundamentals and sane maintenance, the Pacific Seacraft 40 is the trustworthy ride. If you love Scandinavian quality in a size that keeps you practicing instead of procrastinating, the Najad 380 is the manageable center cockpit that makes you use the boat weekly. And if you want big boat comfort with a certified backbone and a deck plan that a couple can actually drive, the Contest 50 CS gives you the stride without the stress. A few universal rules make these boats shine no matter which one you choose. Reef earlier than your pride wants to. Sleep more than your itinerary wants you to. Rig the boat so the 3 moves you make most, hoist, reef, and furl, are easy enough to do in the dark when you're tired. Put money into ground tackle you trust and an autopilot that steers quietly. Lead lines to where your hands go. Label the clutches. Keep the cockpit clear. Big passages are won by boring habits, not by heroic hours. If this helped you see your boat more clearly, tap subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. We're building a full library of honest, no-hype guides for grown-up miles. Tell me your shortlist in the comments, and I'll help you choose based on where you sail, how you crew, and how you like to spend a day. Fair winds, and I'll see you in the next one.